I apologize. I should have done that earlier. I always start that recording early because I forget it. Joining the COC is simple. The only thing you'll ever belong to that there isn't a membership fee. Applications, I sent them out earlier, I think last week, to remind everyone to renew them. We're just refreshing everything, but also we'll send it out when we send out the slides from today's presentation. It'll also be in our our bi-weekly announcements that come out next week. So application is a fillable PDF. Boom, 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 fill it out, and sorry about that, and send it right on back. So easy peasy, no paper, no printing, no none of that. The committees of the COC are really at the heart of everything we do, whether it be our Continuum of Care Board, Performance and Outcomes, which is looking at those system performance measures that Colin and his group are looking at, our Application Committee, who helps us to secure funding for our many organizations throughout our community, our Mainstream and Outreach Committee, who not only does the, beating the streets, going out and finding folks who need services, but also helping them to access those services. Some of the folks here that are on our HMIS and data committee who have worked so hard over the past year in getting our data quality in an amazing position to, I would say, to compete against any COC on how we've improved and the directions we're going in as we work collaboratively to make those changes. Our coordinated entry or centralized coordinated intake, and that's Tammy and her folks manage and administer coordinated entry, but that's making sure that everybody goes through the process of entering the system the same way. It doesn't mean everybody gets treated or gets the same thing, because everybody's needs are different, but the way they access the system, the screenings that are used are the same for everybody, so that we can do an accurate referral. And then of course our point in time committee, which sets up and helps manage the point in time count, which we do normally in January each year, but this year because of waivers and COVID, it was done in February, and we'll talk about what those numbers look like. So with that, yes. Okay, well, each committee meets differently. And you sign up to serve on that committee, and then that committee chair will contact you. Several of the committee chairs are going to be turning over this year after September. Absolutely, sure. If you'll write that down, Denise, thank you. And the Salvation Army, Sandine is here to talk a little bit about what's going on. You want to do it from there, you want to do it from here, it's completely up to you. Come on over. I'm sorry? It's right here. Yep. Come on. Yeah.
Can everyone hear me? All right. I do tend to talk loudly. Today I'm going to cover 3 areas of Salvation Army. I'm going to discuss our sites. I'm going to also discuss the programs in the sites and also upcoming events.
I think people enjoyed having that option of
Someone is not muted.
Virtual. You probably want to just keep that.
Hello, this is my family. And I want to explain a little bit about myself. I am a wife, a mother of 2, a licensed professional counselor candidate, and now a part of Salvation Army family as the new social service director. This is my captain. I have Captain Jason Smith, who's here, and his wife, Captain Melissa Smith. 2 months ago, they invited me and embraced me in the Salvation Army family. We have 3 locations. We have our family store and donation center that's located off of Manchester, where we have slightly used clothes, and also we provide clothing for individuals in need. We have the Corn Worship and Community Center. We do a lot there. Captain Jason is our pastor on Sundays and do worship on Wednesdays as well. We have the summer camp, and we also have the after school program. And lastly, we have Joy, just older youth. Thus for individuals 50 and older to have something to do as far as socializing with each other. And where my location is, the Salvation Army on 2nd Avenue. One thing I want you guys to be aware of with Salvation Army, we have serviced over 30 million individuals in a lot of different avenues. Now I want to discuss my team. I'm going to first talk about Reverend Mike. Reverend Mike ensures our meals, and I know he's been around a while, you guys, so I know you are familiar with Pastor Mike. Pastor Mike is our food service manager. He keeps it running every day. We serve meals from 5 to 5:40. On Sunday, that's the change. It's 4:30 to 5:30. So if you know any clients out there, please send them to the Salvation Army to receive a hot meal daily. And also, he has a dual role. He's also our emergency disaster service coordinator. So in the event of a fire, in the event of the natural disasters, he is the team that comes out and serves the individuals. We have a newbie like me, only 2 months in. I have Gloria Lambden. Gloria is our financial assistance caseworker. She is the one responsible for our rental and our utility assistance. And then we have James. Fortunately, I have James here today. James also has a dual role. He serves our Pathway of Hope, and he also does the hotel motel program. And I know that Ms. Pat mentioned earlier about it. Let me explain. Our hotel motel program, we utilize a local hotel here up to 28 days. We would love to partner with you guys until we find permanent housing. And so what I'm hearing today, and even on the screen here, I'm hearing a lot of housing authority. We want to ensure the transition is smoothly done. And that's James is responsible for that. He also has a Pathway of Hope, which is also an important program. It's an intensive case management program. We want to end this. We just don't want to get them in shelter. I know you're from Phoenix City, housing. We don't want to get them in shelter and just leave them. James will ensure with the year and 2 years to make sure their needs are met and also provide that individual case management service. Now, I want to talk to you about some upcoming events. We have Register to Ring. What is that? If you have clients or yourself want to get a part-time seasonal job, please tell your clients, encourage your clients to go online to Register to Ring. And it's for seasonal and they get paid. Lastly, we have our Angel Tree. Our Angel Tree, of course, is so important to us. We want to service 600 families. Now, this is where I need you guys' help, even you online. We don't want to service duplicate families. We want to be able to spread it around. I will be reaching out to this team. I need you. If you are doing something similar that we are doing, please reach out to us. We want to make sure we don't service the same community, the same family. We want to meet the needs of other families. I've talked to you personally. I've talked to you about my personal family. I've also shared with you the family of the Salvation Army family. And I just want to thank you guys for allowing me to be a part of your family. I do want to express our team, we can't do this alone. You guys, we are a family, and we want to make sure we impact the world starting here in Columbus. Reach out to me. There's a lot of names I saw on here. I was jotting them down. Reach out to me because I need you guys. I need to know what you do, and I want to know what we can offer you. And that is it.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Again, thank you, Dee, for that. All right, let's go over and start talking about point in time count. Like I mentioned a little bit earlier, point in time count is that one snapshot. Is it completely accurate? Absolutely not. But does it give us a measure that we can track from year to year to year? It does. So point in time count is one day. You pick that one day and you find out where folks experiencing homelessness or you count and assess the needs of those experiencing homelessness on that night, whether they be in an emergency shelter, transitional shelter, or transitional housing, I should say, or literally homeless and on the street. Because of what we expected to be a higher than normal transmission rate in January, COVID-19 coming off of the holidays and families and visiting and everything else, we applied for and received from HUD a waiver to move our count from the last 10 days of January as it is normally supposed to be done. And so we moved it to mid-February, just giving us a couple more weeks to get over the hump of the post-holiday surge. So we braced ourselves. We did complete count like we do every year, meaning sheltered and unsheltered. And we're very, very successful in getting 40 plus volunteers from various community service providers and organizations. And we're really, really pleased with the numbers. This year, in spite of a global pandemic, in spite of many of us having to slow down the services we provided, halt some of the services we provided over the past year, and all of the other things that happened, we saw a decrease of 4.8 or almost 5% to the tune of 12 people. It's not a huge decrease, but slow and steady always does win the race. And we've seen a slow but steady decline over the past several years. And this on the screen, you guys will see that there's a little bit of an increase in the number of men over the past year, but it was counteracted by a decrease in the number of females. Now, if we look down at the sheltered and unsheltered, that's a little anomalous because of the fact that that particular week was the coldest week of the year. And we've had folks to joke that for somehow, some way, we always seem to have point in time count on that week. I mean, I remember one year we had to cancel it because we had ice and snow. We had to cancel a day of point in time count. So our sheltered count is down supposedly 34. Our unsheltered count is down about 34% from the year before. We were expecting that because there was a hard freeze. It was below 28 degrees. So the majority of our people were at warming shelters. Safe House had a warming shelter. Thank you. Safe House had a warming shelter. Our folks at Birch Church had a warming shelter. So people were indoors, staying warm. So we knew that number would be a little bit different. I'm sorry. Yes, there was 210. 210 that were sheltered, only 27 unsheltered versus 41 unsheltered the year before. Okay, so it was a 34% decrease. And then, come on, here we go. Yeah. I tried to do that earlier and it would go. Yep. But I'm gonna send you a copy of this as well. Yep, everybody's gonna get a copy of this. It's not gonna be today, but because truth be told, I'm leaving town after this. So the male, female, sheltered and unsheltered, and we just broke it down into all of the different categories that we have to submit. We take what we have to submit for our final submission, and we break it down the same way. So we had a 6% increase in the male sheltered and a 2% decrease in the female sheltered. And of course, again, the unsheltered, those numbers, oh, great. I'm about to go, my battery's about to run out. It's just been one of those days, I guess. If we can, it's fading fast. So Zoom folks, if we lose you, don't go away. We'll be right back. Okay, 47% since 2010. So nearly 50% from where we were in 2010. That's pretty doggone good, I think. And again, I think it goes back to what Dee said. I'm not going to try and move anything on the screen until I get the PowerPoint. This is about a joint effort. There's not a person in here that hasn't contributed to that somehow, some way, whether it was meeting the needs of a client, referring a client, whatever. Making sure that we prevented that homelessness from happening. So that's, I mean, that shows great dedication. And are we back? Can you hear me? Somebody nod something.
Yeah, we can hear you. I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, well,
Yes, we can hear you. We can't
this
see.
isn't
There you
going
go.
well. Try this again. But if they speak, we can't hear that. All right, let's give this a shot. Share the screen. Hey, Colin's over there laughing at us.
No, this happens. This happens.
Exactly. We can't hear anybody if they say something. All right. So moving right along in our agenda, hopefully someone's going to monitor. If someone, okay, thank you, Denise. Back literally the day before we all shut down, seemed like the world in March of last year. There was
Okay,
a
so
group of
maybe
us,
you can
there was
answer
3
this
of us,
question for me.
who had a meeting about HUD data
Sheila
quality.
Arrington, what in
And
the
it
hell is
was,
going on?
it was not
She's
a
been
pretty
here
sight.
3 times.
It wasn't a pretty
Do we have any
conversation.
freaking clue
We
why?
had some major issues and that needed improvement. So
Okay.
If nothing else, the global.
the
pandemic
other
gave us
question
time to
is-
focus on it also, on data quality improvement, but also showed us that, you know, we were literally all swimming upstream together, and it was easier if we held hands and pushed together. So I just want to share some data standards or the quality improvement that we've achieved over the past little over a year. So from just the basic personal information, there was 3% or almost 4% improvement in Social Security numbers. We went from being above our margin of error to being below in that. The other areas, there was not a whole lot of issue. As we go further into the data quality, we had some really, really high error rates and some things that are no longer. We look at some of these statistics here, talking about the biggest one being the client location. And we did a lot of training. We did a
Oh,
lot
okay,
of
so that was on.
happy hours last year, HMIS happy hours.
Oh, no, 'cause I got that one
A
on
lot
Do
of
Not
talking
Disturb, so
about
I can
why
be-
does this
that's-
error keep coming up? Not just you have the problem, but why, and how do we avoid it from happening again? We were pausing workflows in the middle of doing an enrollment, not going back, and didn't get to that question of where you clicked that the client location was in the COC. It defaults, but if you pause the workflow before it and you don't go back in, the client's enrolled, but it's not complete, and those errors are going to come up. So we went from almost 6% to less than 0.5% error rate in just a little over a year. Again, that disabling condition, it was the same thing. It was stopping the workflow before we got.
Okay, so when I did
because
put,
as we all know who use
I just put a
HMIS,
check mark. I've already put it out in the
proceed. It
Barringtons,
tells
but this
you
is everybody,
you missed
everybody that's
something,
highlighted
you
is who I
haven't
need.
filled something out.
And I put a check mark
Only
on the
way
ones
you
that you
can
already gave
get
me.
around that is if you pause that work.
Okay, that's fine. It's
So
gonna take me a
disabling
minute to figure
condition
out
went
this
from,
anyway.
you know,
I don't know what the hell's
almost
going on here.
7% error rate, which is 2%
Okay.
higher than our
This is
5%
Lisa. Pat.
allowable,
Pat.
to just over
That's fine.
0.5% error rate. Again, huge difference there in our quality of data.
Somebody needs
Yeah,
to.
there's some really big numbers here. We're looking at the destination when somebody was
I do
leaving
know that.
the system or leaving your program. Where
No,
were they
not
going?
very. It really doesn't.
16.2% error rate in March of last year. As of last month's, no, I'm sorry, June's, we're
Okay.
at we're at 0%. Looking at income at the beginning, again, stopping that workflow, not completing that enrollment all the way through, not filling out those financial assessments at the beginning. We were at over 12% error rate. We're just over 0.5% at 0.55%. Again, annual assessments, you know, 1 year into the program, making sure that those are done on time, and the income assessment is part of that. We were at over 26% error rate. We're at 4.35. And then again, when you're exiting that client, when Lynn has moved out and is doing things on her own, and you're exiting her from your program, again, doing those income assessments, we've got a decrease of over 22% errors. So, I mean, absolutely huge improvement. And managing or monitoring, answering the questions about chronic homelessness. We have improved dramatically, but again, the numbers weren't that high to begin with. So but just to, and then looking at this now, timeliness is the only thing that went in the other direction. And I have to say, I think that had something to do with the fact that a lot of us were in or out, or the clients were not available, or this or that and the other over the past year. Say all in all, kudos to the HMIS committee. I know Liz serves on it. I don't know if Valerie's on the call here. I don't know if Charles is on the call. I saw Tiffany earlier, who chairs the HMIS committee. I mean, that's been a huge, huge undertaking. We've talked about it, talked about it, talked about it, talked about it, pushed it, pushed it, pushed it. You folks are submitting data quality reports on a monthly basis. You're looking at them, you're correcting errors. And no, we're not perfect, and we're never going to be perfect, but we have taken what was really a really ugly situation just a little over a year ago, and turned it around to being a very, very successful quality data. And one of the reasons that now Colin and his group can look at our data, and they can comb our system, and they can look at our system performance measures and those kinds of things, but because we have some quality data in there. And I don't know if anybody has a comment there, and if anybody here won't say anything, but I say kudos. Everybody needs to give each other a round of applause, a pat on the back or something, because that's huge. That's huge. And in fact, we started giving away ice creams, what, a month ago? Yeah, for those who have perfect, we're not gonna do it every month though, that's a little much. But for those, once a quarter, for those who have perfect data quality, because Lydia didn't bring me my dip cone, that's the truth. But once a quarter, for those who have perfect data quality, they will get a gift certificate. This past time it was Dairy Queen. We'll see if that continues, or if we're just gonna do a round robin and pick places to give gift certificates to those who've had perfect data quality. So now we're going to talk a little bit about system performance. Colin, what I had intended to do here is just to go over what our numbers look like versus the information we recently got. I think it was August the 4th that came out about national averages, and we were going to just compare ours to the national averages. Then I was going to let you talk about what you guys are looking at, and just give us a little information. And I know that some folks wanted to talk about how our numbers look, but also how do we take this information and do gap analysis and do, like I mentioned earlier, program redesign, program design. How do we decide what to get rid of and what do we need to add? So system performance breaks down into a couple of things. And this is system performance measures for dummies that I had to find when these first came out, because the definition is about this long, but it boils down to length of time homeless, systematic length of time homeless, meaning it's not when Lynn entered my program, but it's when Lynn entered the system. When did she begin working with homeless service providers? That is when her length of time homeless, based on the date when you say, okay, about when did your homelessness start? That's that date that drives the length of time homeless. Returns to homelessness, those, Lynn was successfully housed. We exited her from our program, and 2 years later, she returns to homelessness, or experiences homelessness again. This is measuring 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, and 2 years returned within, returned within 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, and 2 years. The overall number of homeless, again, like the point in time count, those who have grown their income since entering our system, again, these are called system performance measures. So this is measuring all of us. So that's why we all have to work together to meet the needs of the client. First time homeless, that's what I was talking about when I said it's going to start moving towards prevention. What do the numbers look like in our community of people becoming homeless for the first time? Are we preventing folks from becoming homeless more than we did the year before, or not? How do we compare to other communities and nationally? And then successful placement and retention of permanent housing. So again, I took these numbers, and I'm going to have to cheat because I printed out the numbers, because sometimes my eyes are so old I can't read the graphs. And again, I will send everybody a link to this and the numeric breakdown. What we did was the orangish red here is our continuum, and the bluish is the national average. And again, HUD published this notice or this information on August the 4th of system performance measures with the national averages. So I just took them and then put them into Excel and with our numbers so that we could have a graph of what it looks like. So the length of time homeless, if you notice, we had an upswing back in 16 to 17. Then we were on that slow but steady decline. And then last year, our length of time homeless went up. Again, may be anomalous. You can see nationally it went up to not as big of a, the degree of the angle is not as high as ours. But again, with everything that happened in the past year, that I think that's sort of to be expected. We just sort of want to make it a little bit closer to our counterparts. So length of time homeless. How quickly do we get that person from entering our homeless system and exiting to permanent housing? And that doesn't mean they're exiting our system. That means they have a move-in date. They have moved into housing. Returns in 2 years. Again, the national average has been pretty steady at a little bit under 10%. Actually, they're right at 9%, and we're riding right now at about 12%. Again, we've seen that slow but steady decline in returns, which means as organizations, we're doing a little bit better each year at making sure once the person gets there, like Dee was talking about, once the person gets there, we're not just giving them a key and saying, okay, you're good, see you later. What we're doing is we're making sure that that family, that household has what they need to sustain the housing and to improve their standard of living. So we're doing better at that. Changes in point in time count. Really, really excited to see this one because as you can see here, the national average had a decrease of about 15% from 2015 to now. And we've had a decrease of, 2016. And from Colin was saying we had 47% since 2010. Since 2016, which is what this went back to, there's been a 24%. So again, kudos. We're keeping people in their housing, and which means we are being able to focus on the ones that are in our system, and they're not returning, but also because we're having less people, so it means we're doing a better job of that retention. So that's pretty cool. A change in income. So for those who are in our system and then leave our system, we're not doing a real good job of making sure that they're increasing their income. There could be a number of things, and again, that's one of the reasons we've asked Homebase and just Colin and his folks to take a look at our system performance measures, to look for commonalities, for common denominators and things like that. How do we do a better job? We know economic mobility. The Columbus is way down on the rankings when it comes to economic mobility. We all know that. But our folks are the most vulnerable. So any little bit of an increase is a huge increase for someone with little or nothing. So we have to look at, and a part of that analysis of our programs and where we go from here is talking about that economic mobility. How do we help people increase their income? And that doesn't necessarily mean let's go ahead and have everybody fill out an application for SSI. Now, for those staying in our system, it goes the other way. So what is it we're doing? So is this, what is affecting this number? Why is it those who are staying in our system increasing the income and those who are leaving our system not? What does that mean? What does that look like? Who are they and how do we drill down? Again, that's why we've enlisted the help of the experts to help us do that. Number of those who became homeless for the first time, This is that prevention piece, okay? The national average on this is down about 24%. So they've decreased the number of people entering the systems across the country by 24% over the past since 2016 on this graph or on this data set. We've only done it for about almost 12%. So our prevention, are we doing enough for prevention? The people who are getting housed, we're doing all right and keeping them there. Doing pretty doggone good, actually. But are we doing a good job of preventing people from being homeless? Do we have those resources in place and to do that? So again, the successful placement and retention of housing. We've had a dip over the past year. Not the national average stayed about the same over the past year. We had a dip over the past year. So those who had been housed, we let them drop a little bit over the past year. So last year we were at 63%. So we were running between 93 and 83 to 93% every year before that. So what very well, very well could be that, you know, the everything that's happened over the past year, but just making sure that we keep that in mind as we're looking at the data and as we're planning for where we go from here. And Colin, if you will, let me, I'm going to stop sharing my screen so folks can see you. And if you want to talk to us about what we've just gone over so that we can all have a better understanding maybe and how you guys are going to help us to take all those raw numbers and put them into action.
Sure. Can you hear me?
We can't hear you.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Hang on.
Can people in the squares hear me? Because I think I can hear the people
It's not
in the
you.
squares.
It's not you.
Okay.
Somebody hears. Denise, can you turn yours up? You may need to come and plug in then. You may need to come plug in. They can hear him on Zoom, but we can't hear him in the building. Can you turn it all the way up? Go ahead. Colin?
Hello? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So I think I'm going to answer your.
Okay, hang on 1 second, Colin. We're gonna try and plug her in.
What am I missing?
Colin?
Can you hear?
Yep, I can hear you. Hello?
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, the group won't be, go ahead.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so there's a couple. I think I'm going to answer the questions backwards. So I want to give a little context of some of the things that I'm finding, and then try to explain what I hope to accomplish in the next couple of weeks to give you all a report that might be a building block for future planning. First off, I wanted to
Hang on,
echo
Colin,
the.
we're still having trouble.
Okay.
Sorry? No. Yeah, we're on recording. But go ahead, Colin. We're gonna do the best we can. I don't know what happened speaker wise.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so I just wanted to echo the two things that Pat and you all spoke about. The first one being the decrease of people experiencing homelessness overall over the last 10 years. That 47%, that 50% is pretty remarkable and something special, something to be celebrated. Also, the data improvement, especially for fiscal year 2020, was pretty remarkable. You really now are able to look at your exit destination data and really better understand what your impact is on the populations you are getting to serve. I think the concern would be that as we see overall homelessness declining, you see that in people experiencing homelessness without children. You see that in that adult-only population, but you don't see that shift in families.
Right.
In terms of the pit, it's flat, and in terms of service access, you see this sharp incline of people experiencing homelessness and needing services who are in families. So something might
Hold on
be
one second.
happening.
Let me just reiterate what you're saying. We've seen a decrease, sharp decrease in single adult households experiencing homelessness.
Yeah, so adult-only households sharp decrease.
Right, but not so much in families. Does, Colin,
Right, no.
just a little bit of history here. Salvation Army 2 years ago, I think now, changed their service model because of that data. They were single adult male and went to household, fit household for children because of that. So, yeah.
And that's great because that makes sense and you can see that in your data, which is important. That's really great. I would also, and I haven't been physically to your continuum of care, so forgive me for that ignorance, but I would also see in your HIC data and in some of the data on your LSA that folks are being largely served in urban areas. And there's a lot of population outside of that urban center. And so what might be also happening is that it's really difficult. The inequity issues might be a geographical one. And so thinking about that and where you're all situated and what you're all doing geographically might be a very good exercise to map out your programs on a map and see how long it would take someone without transportation to get to A to B to flow through your system. That would be a really important thing to do. But what I'm hoping to do with your data, your SPMs, your LSA, your PIT, your HIC, is really look at access and ask who is accessing the system, how long does it take, and splitting that time up between, the time it takes to get in for the first time you come in and the first time you leave. Those two sections are really important to really understand. Are we reaching out to people? Are people spending more and more time experiencing homelessness before they come in? Right. Also want to look at how people are progressing through the system, how they're getting from one project type to another project type. And that's really really important because you're all trying to be coordinated, right? You're all using coordinated entry. You're all trying to coordinate right now. And so we want to make sure that we can reduce the time it takes people to move from one place to another and reduce the time to access permanent supportive housing.
Hold on,
One
Tom.
note on the thing, yep.
That's killing her.
Are we ready? Hello? Okay. One thing that want to make sure we try to find is chart the the outcomes across some demographics and housing types so that we can understand if there are any differences. And that's like outcomes in terms of exits to permanent housing and then also retention of that housing. So we're looking at those things as well. And what this like whole project I think is concerned for is to start generating some baselines and benchmarks, maybe for your whole system, but also start having the conversation between each project of what's our benchmark to, you know, we have a permanent destination rate at X at our program. How do we beat that for next year? Don't worry so much about like the national average or even the COC average, but improving on what you are doing and how you are doing that is a way that we start asking really critical questions about how we can provide care better and how we can listen to the folks who are serving a little more effectively. So those are kind of the things that I'm hoping to grasp out of the data. And I really hope that I get a opportunity to talk to you about it again after I've finished that. Does anybody have any questions? I know I spoke pretty fast and there's cars driving by and I had some. Anybody have any questions or something that they feel surprised about the system performance measures?
Colin, can you hear me? Can you hear me, Colin?
Yep.
Hold on.
Okay.
Colin?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So I just wanted to back up.
Y'all are giving her a freaking heart attack.
We good now? I'll send them an email and forward it to everybody. Go ahead, Colin.
Oh yeah,
We
I'm moving
could all,
along, honey. I'm moving quite along. Okay, so Henry Jackson forward. I don't know. Do you have that list still that I gave you?
Yeah, it's on my desk.
Yeah. I'm fixing to do Louis Holmes, Henry Jackson, and start printing out those below him.
Okay. That's Mara.
Yes.
I can't either.
Oh, you know what? That one's not in alphabetical order, is it? Okay.
Can someone tell Colin to go ahead?
Oh, okay, so Kim had a question in the chat box about, it said, Colin, the number is going down, is why I think it's so important that our COC be discussing shifts in population, demographics, and locations. I agree with this as well. And not just the, the data in terms of like the quantitative data that you can get from American Community Survey or the data you're collecting, but really understanding what your clients are experiencing in terms of those shifts as well. That's really important. And we'll be looking at some, but I didn't look at the change in family, like the populations of people in families versus non-families in your area. So I'll go back and see if I can drag up a map from the American Community Survey. They have a really quick and easy mapping website now that you can just really plug and play, and you really look at these differences. So let me see if I can find anything, and yeah, I'll look into that. Thank you, Kim.
Any other questions? I don't know if the chat's even going through over there. Here we go.
Alternatively, you could email me if you do have questions. Just email Pat, and Pat can forward them on to me, and I can see if I can answer those questions in the data when we have that report.
Can anybody hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, we
Yes.
can.
All right, Colin, I don't know if you can hear me. But thank you so much for that. And I think one of the things I was wanting to say was when you mentioned that looking at our benchmarks for a particular program, our success rate on exiting people to permanent housing, and doing that in a realistic way, I think would be helpful for us to get some expertise on how we evaluate that across the systems. And then setting benchmarks for our own personal or our own programs, and then seeing how each of us trying to improve 1% here, 1% here, 1% there, how it globally makes a difference across the system. And that's huge. And then also, so it's not like we have all of these folks who, all of them exit to these wonderful permanent or permanent exits only on 6 months for them to come back because it wasn't realistic. Let's be very, very realistic with how we enter and how we exit our folks. Anybody here have anything? Unfortunately, with all of the technical difficulties, hopefully you heard what Colin was saying, and any discussion. I know Kim was talking about looking at program and structure and all of those things, and also locations and those. But I think part of it too has to do with what Colin was talking about. Looking at where our services are, how can people get to us? How do we make ourselves available? But also, do we get outside of our buildings to make ourselves available to our clients? And is that realistic for our program type? So, I mean, it's just going to be part of an ongoing review of what we're doing. So moving right along, we all know the CDC moratorium on eviction was reinstated on August the 3rd. They've kicked that can down the road again till October 3rd, which is a reprieve for those who were waiting on that Georgia rental assistance, or for our friends across the river, the Alabama rental assistance, which has been a slow go. I mean, some studies have said, or some reports, I should say, have said that there was at the end of March, there was an application number of 50,000 looking for assistance. And by the end of July, only 770 of those had been paid. That's pretty scary. That's pretty scary. And I know we all were here the day before the moratorium went back into place, and we're wondering what if. So, you know, it's time for all of those who are making these fundings accessible to make them easier to access for those who in need. And I know I'm speaking to the choir, but of course, everyone still needs to do a declaration form. You can still be evicted if you've not done the declaration form. You can also still be evicted for other lease violations. It does not cover that. Am I correct in saying that? Yes. Non-payment of rent. Heard that from the gentleman. No evictions will be done for non-payment of rent. Other lease violations, you will be evicted. Okay, Board of Directors. We have a vacancy for Columbus Consolidated Government. They just haven't filled out their form and sent it back yet. So we technically still have a vacancy. But we have a couple of terms that are expiring this year. So they've, all of them are returning nominee or returning board members. Jennifer Lohman from Phoenix City, Ms. Sanders from Phoenix City Housing Authority, and Ms. Benita Beatty from Veterans Administration. That being said, we every 2 years, our chair is the chairman of our board is up, and our co-chair then steps into that. So we have continuity and consistency. And so with that being said, today is the last meeting that our leader, our fearless leader, Major Lockett from the Sheriff's Department, will be heading up this organization or our group. And Miss Lisa Walters has been nominated by the board to assume the chair position. Mr. Louis Robinson has been nominated to assume the vice chair, and Ms. Sanders to retain her position as secretary. I would like to, I need to go back, and we'll need to, again, the board has accepted all of these returning members, but we have to have a show of hands if there's any It's easier to go if there's any objections. If there's any objections to any of these members, Ms. Loman, Ms. Sanders, or Ms. Beatty, returning to the COC board for the next year, please raise your hand or unmute or chat. If you'll check the chat, Denise, just to make sure there's no objections. Nominations will carry. Going on to the officers again, board has agreed that to the slate of officers. If there's any objections, speak now. Otherwise, it will carry. That being said, if I can go ahead and have Major Lockett walk up for just a moment. Just a little expression of our gratitude and appreciation. And I put it in here so I wouldn't spill anything on it. Just a little certificate to say thank you for serving as the chair of our COC for the past 2 years. It's been a joy. We've learned a lot. I know we've learned a lot about how it works on your side of this situation. And I think the cooperation and the collaboration, I know I called many of the folks here last week when you called me and said, hey, there's been a halt. Judge Smith has put a halt. I was able to make sure these folks knew so that when folks started calling them, they were able to say, hey, it'll be okay. This is what we're gonna do. This is how we're gonna take the steps. But that enhanced relationship has meant a lot. So we want to say thank you. We appreciate you. And you know, you still got a year to serve, so you can't go anywhere. Lisa's gonna take the reins, but we're not gonna let you go anywhere. Thank you, Curtis. Appreciate you. You're welcome. And yes, that's why I called to make sure you were coming. So moving right along, United Way kickoff. It's that time of the year again. We're kicking off the United Way campaign for 2021. And it'll be kicking off 2 weeks from today, actually, 2 weeks from today. And this time it's going to be in the morning. It's a morning kickoff. We'll be starting at 9 o'clock. It'll be over at the Phoenix City Amphitheater. So we're having it in the morning, so it's nice and cool. And we'll be doing all kinds of fun stuff, and they'll have some entertainment. And so we hope that you will be able to join us. We'll have a link to the registration in the resources that come out with this slide presentation. Speaking of which, there they are. Thanks to Denise. The declaration form, if anyone needs it, we have a link there. Also, our housing navigation, our monthly housing navigation meeting will be on September the 7th at 3 p.m. Here's the link to the Zoom. Of course, we're doing the hybrid. We'll do it here live and on Zoom, and then the United Way kickoff. And that's it. I have nothing else. Denise, if you'll check the chat and see if anybody has anything. Terry, yes. Okay, there were 2 people who joined by phone. One was Colin. The 603 number was Colin. And if there was anybody else on there by phone, I don't know. 9538. If you will identify yourself, that way we can keep you, we will mark you down for attending. All right, anything else before we leave? Well, thank you, Colin. I appreciate you helping us to look at some of our data, and we look forward to some advice on best practices on how we go forward, how we analyze this data. And as I said, Kim has some great ideas on how we review these things and all, but looking at it from a programmatic, but then a global perspective will be very interesting. So if we have nothing else, we'll go ahead and close the meeting. Y'all have a wonderful afternoon.